And we're going to start the show with something that's been covered on the majority of the front pages, which is the budget. So it's taking place later this afternoon. A lot of people speculating on what might actually be in it. Lots of stuff gets leaked. This is just before we get into a big discussion. The leaking of the budget.
I've never seen anything like this.
It would not have happened back in the day.
No, I've never seen. I mean, you get hints, you know, people who cover this get hints, but this has virtually been shoved out over the past 2 days. They've actually confirmed some of the things. So, I mean, it is astonishing. So there's not going to be many surprises, I don't think.
What do you think about the leaking? Does it ruin it?
No.
Well, is it leaking or is it briefing? Because I suppose he does need.
Same thing.
He does need one. Well, briefing is when they're doing it intentionally.
No.
Because they think it's useful to have the headlines and sort of a good news week, and then leaking is if someone's done it when they weren't supposed to.
I think they've leaked it because they don't want. Because I think, you know, remember the Tories overpromised 3 months ago this budget was going to change everything. Well, it's not going to, and I think they just want to drip out the bad news quite slowly. But.
Well, so let's just take a look of what might be in it. First of all, what they want us to think is happening over here. Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, sitting in his office, cool, calm, and collected, looking at his computer. In a very sort of sage and rational state. What is actually happening is probably something a little bit more like this, where he's just where's the money? You know, where can I find some money to give away? Because he has to find money to save his party at the election. That's the crucial thing. It's so we don't buy that, Mr. Hunt. I'm sorry, we think it's... And this is the reason. Look at this polling from yesterday. The Tories are here. It's the worst for 46 years. And they're down 7% on January, and Labour approaching 50%. So they are in a crisis. And he's the front man today with the big budget box. Open it up. What do we think's inside it? This is the Mail, like most of the papers, have got the briefing. So 2p cut to national insurance paid by, firstly, well, all the panicking there. Where do I get the money? So vapes, new tax. Rise in tobacco duty. This guy's out of luck because he's also a non-dom, so he's going to get hit by that as well. Then extension of the tax on oil and gas in the North Sea. Then holiday lets. They're going to remove tax breaks from them. There'll be an extension of the 5p cut in fuel duty. And if you fly business, bring on the plane, you'll have to pay more for your ticket. So they can get some bits and pieces of money from behind the sofa. But I want to just mention this guy. Who's that? Hugh Dalton. 1947, resigned in disgrace and was never heard from again. Why? Because he was the Chancellor and he leaked the budget. And now you leak the budget, you get praised. Things have changed. I know you're all in favour of Michael leaking everything. It's just, it used to be a surprise.
Yes. Well, I'm not in favour of leaking. I suppose the problem with leaking everything is that it creates, I think, a cosy relationship between politicians and the media because everyone wants to have it leaked to them first.
I don't think
George Osborne's budget was leaked about 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But no, not leaked. Sorry, somebody left it on a train, and the whole thing was literally the whole thing was in the Evening Standard. But I mean, anyway, whatever. It spoils the excitement of the day. He's probably got a few rabbits out of hats. What do you think? What would you say if he's got time to put one more thing in? What should he change?
Well, I think the problem with this budget and the Tory budgets in general is it's all about one more thing. It's this sort of list of tinkering at the edges. And one thing I learned yesterday, which I thought was somewhat entertaining, last year's budget, do you know what it was called? The Plan for Growth. And then what do we get in the next 12 months? A recession. Right? So this is all tinkering. It seems all designed so that he can give this 2p cut to national insurance to go into a general election saying we've cut some taxes. But there doesn't seem to be anything in here which is going to solve Britain's underlying problem, which is incredibly low investment.
I don't know whether this helps you, Michael, but it is now, this budget is called the Plan for Long-Term Growth. Just so you know. So I'll show you the Matt cartoon. We love Matt here in the Telegraph. And it's exactly as we were saying. He says so much of the budget has leaked out, it's completely ruined the element of disappointment.
That's exactly what it's about.
Yeah.
But you know, this budget was supposed to be the one that gave us all a reason to vote Tory again. It was supposed to remind us why we should bring them back into power. It's done the total opposite. You know, up until 2 weeks ago, he was still talking about 30 billion giveaways. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be expecting. And then suddenly the OBR pops off, the Office for Budget Responsibility, which is a misnomer for a start, and says that they really haven't got any money to spend.
Well, we know they've got any
Stop
money.
listening to the Office for Budget Responsibility.
But where is this money?
They never, ever get it right. And they don't just get it wrong, they get it catastrophically wrong. In recent years, they've got it £558 billion worth of catastrophically wrong.
But they did, in fairness, blow the whistle on Liz Truss.
Well, how interesting, isn't it? I just thought this was ironic yesterday. And it blew the whistle on Truss, and the same organisation that Sunak encouraged to blow the whistle on Liz Truss is now going to do for him.
Well, maybe in a way, we'll get to our debate in a second, because this is what we're going to talk about, is what you think Hunt should do today. But Michael, maybe the Tories, if they are heading for the election catastrophe those polls suggest, they need to become the Truss party. They've got to be saying, look, we're offering something different here. We're going to slash all taxes, and it's every man for himself.
Well, I think this is a plan, even this cut here, I think, is a plan to shore up their core vote, because they know they're not going to win the next general election.
This is not going to shore anything up. Nothing.
Well, yeah, you can say they haven't done it particularly well, but I think that is the intention here. They need to shore up their core vote, because it's a question now of do they get 20% or 28%. They're not going to win the next general election. They're not appealing to the majority of people who actually want taxes. They're prioritising better public services over lower taxes.
2% on national insurance was short. Nothing. They gave 2% last year. People didn't even notice. They won't notice this. What people needed was an income tax cut, because they can feel that in the pocket.
Well, listen, do call us on this, because we want you to have your say on how the Chancellor spends whatever coins he's found down the back of his armchair.
And that's all it is.
Well, I know it is.
You said before, bits and pieces. That's exactly what it is. And that's not going to win the next election.
Well, maybe not. But they had their fingers burnt with Truss, because Truss came in and said, we're going to slash everything.
By the Office
We're going to Thatcher year 5 in the first day. That's what she said.
Do you know the Office of Budget Responsibility? What's he called? The boss is called, he's called David Miles. He has even said what we say isn't gospel.
Yeah, but it wasn't him. It was these so-called bond vigilantes in the markets who destroyed her. That was, but I'm just saying, maybe that's why he can't do full Truss. Right, because you become a lettuce.
I think when you've got a handful of months left in government, you can go.
You
know what or bust.
Wow,
that's
what a thought. Well, maybe well, that's a really good question of whether he should. There's 2 polls here. You save all your money, you spend it on public services, you put it into the NHS and schools and defence and whatnot. You certainly don't give a tax cut, or you go the other way. And he's halfway between these two, actually. You go the other way, which is you say, right, everyone, from now on, you can keep most of the money you earn. Why shouldn't people keep what they earn, Michael?
Well, I mean, I'd like people to keep more than they earn. But at the moment, I think people's big spending isn't so much on tax. It's on things such as rent. So
We've got the highest tax in 70 years.
We have got very high levels of tax. I think inevitably we are going to have higher levels of tax with an ageing population. So you've got a dependency ratio which is getting worse. So your working age population is smaller compared to the people who will inevitably need to be supported by the state.
And what would you cut? Would you bear in mind? Okay, you don't want to cut anything, I'm sure. However, we have a problem with spending money we don't have. You could cancel Trident. I'm starting to think maybe they should do that. You could say we're going to have a massive overhaul of the state pension. You're not getting a state pension until you're 75.
No, you can't.
Sorry, Carole. What?
You cannot cut the state pension. These are the most vulnerable people in society.
It's so expensive.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but they're old people. They've worked. They've paid their taxes. They need money now. There's nearly 2 million people in this country who have nothing but the state pension.
Thanks for letting Michael answer.
Sorry, I thought you said...
Well, I think we're going to have to work out how we can afford these things, because I think what this highlights is anything you sort of bring up, that's what we should cut. There are lots of people who really care about that not being cut, quite understandably. So what we need is to make sure that we have enough growth that we can pay for all this stuff. That requires some investment, not this bean counting that they just do every year.
OK, but that's our launch pad for our debate, for you to get on board and have your say on what Jeremy Hunt should do. He's found a few coins, he's doing a tax cut, it's not a big one. Is it wrong to do the tax cut? Should he be spending more on public services? Should he raise taxes? 0207 862 2222. We'll see you in a moment. Should the Chancellor spend your money in a different way in the budget later? We would love to hear your thoughts on this. Call in now. We'll speak to you in just a moment. 0207 862 2222. Looks like tax cuts are going to be high on the agenda, but people in Jeremy Hunt's own constituency have shared their thoughts in a recent opinion poll, saying that they would rather he put any money that's free into public services like the NHS, schools and childcare. What do you think the Chancellor should do? We've given you a few options here, and you might want to help me mark up these boards with some options on. So here you could say, and a lot of people I know will think, OK, the health service is on its knees. We haven't even got dentistry now. So what about putting it to the NHS? Or there's what you might call infrastructure, road, railways, etc. Maybe the military with what's going on in Ukraine now. There's other things. We mustn't forget schools, all kinds of other areas you might mention. Or tax cuts, which is where we get back the money we earn, which is what Carole wants, but you want tax cuts with knobs on, Carole.
I do want tax. I do.
Yeah.
I think, we were promised literally a couple of months ago that he was going to give us a tax cut, and the national insurance cut was barely mentioned. And a tax cut, we've been told it's going to cost 14 billion to give a 2p income tax cut. And the other one, the national insurance one's going to cost about 9 or 10. So why not put money in people's pockets where it can make a real difference to their lives? People's mortgages have rocketed in the last 18 months.
I suppose the answer is this. Just a friend of mine had an operation, and it was a spinal operation, and they had it on at the NHS, and they asked how much would this cost if I had it privately, and they were told £50,000.
Yeah.
Right? Now, they can put as much money back into their pockets as they like from tax cuts, but they won't be able to pay for that operation.
The fact that we're told it costs £50,000 isn't the real cost of the operation. So what private medicine is charging it, which is not the real cost because there's profit chalked into that as well. So that's not.
That's how things work.
Well, it is, but it's not the real cost of the operation.
Okay.
It's not what it would cost you and I if we were getting it done in the national.
Get it done round the corner by Bert.
It's
talking
not
about
what
a
it
spinal
costs
operation here.
It's not what costs. It costs the national.
I'm just saying that we don't. If the NHS collapses, that costs everyone a lot of money.
Yeah, but the thing is, no matter we've talked about this ad infinitum. No matter how much money you put into the NHS, it's a black hole. It needs total root and branch.
You don't agree with that?
You can't call it a black hole, right? Because this money is paying for people's spinal operations, for example. And the fact is, yes, funding for the NHS has increased. Especially over the past 2 years, right? But that is because we have an ageing population. People have more expectations of the health service. The big problem with the NHS, I think, was that they squeezed funding until 2019, and then they absolutely flooded it with money during COVID-19.
This is just simply not true.
No, that is true. They did squeeze it of cash between 2010 and 2019.
Over the past 13 years, and huge amount. There's more
lots of money has gone in, but it's still squeezed.
Ever before. But lots of money goes in, and a lot of it is wasted and mismanaged. Do you know how much they spend every year just on procurement stuff? The toilet rolls, the face cream.
Let's go to some viewers here. We've got lots of people on the lines here. Chris in Manchester, let you come over to our boards, Chris. Where would you put your name, please, sir?
I can't see the board, Jeremy.
Okay.
Hang on.
Health service, road, rail, military, schools, tax cuts.
Oh, right. Right. None of the above. What?
Go on. Well, I've got one here, which is other. What would you put it on? Just quickly, Chris, please.
We need to put more into the economy and build more houses. Can I just say very quickly, Jeremy?
Yeah, well, hang on, wait, Chris, wait. Just let me write down housing first before you change the subject. Okay, go on. Go on, yes.
Right. We've got moratorium on so much land. I would say sweat the asset of Great Britain. Get house builders, get councils working together. You will generate so much in tax revenues, 25% corporation tax on all the profits that the house builders make. Very quickly, Jeremy, national insurance. This is where it's skewed. National insurance for employees, is that the cut or is it for employers as well? And is it also for the self-employed who pay class 1, 2 and 4?
For employees. Yeah, it's for employees, but we'll find out later. Thank you so much. Douglas in Edinburgh, hi.
I see your board there, but that's pointless. The Tory government have wasted £92 billion on HS2,
yes.
£30 billion on Liz Truss, £21 billion on COVID fraud, £12 billion on PPE, £5 to £6 billion.
If there's any money, Douglas, where'd you put it? Come on.
I would take it out of their hands and put it in responsible Labour Party hands, and at least we might get the money spent in the country instead of it being wasted, Jerry.
It doesn't. Leave them out of it. Where would you put the money if you or Labour were running the government?
Well, I think it's going to have to go into councils that are going to be bankrupt very shortly.
Councils?
Up and down the length and breadth of England.
OK, all right, I hear you. So Birmingham, Thurrock, they're in a dreadful state, Douglas, aren't they?
Yep, I think the government has removed the rate support grant continuously over the years, and they are now verging on bankruptcy.
They are indeed, and thank you, because that does include old people's homes and so on, which are very important. Thank you, Douglas. Terry in Kent, hi.
Hello. I still want to talk about the changes to national insurance. If national insurance is reduced by 2p, it won't help people on benefits or retirement pensioners.
No.
Also, people like nurses and doctors and teachers at the moment will be dragged into a higher tax bracket because of the freezing of the allowances.
Fiscal drag.
At the
Where would you put
moment-
the money? Help us out here, Terry. Where'd you put it? Military, NHS, infrastructure, where'd you go?
Well, if you're not going to have any tax cuts, then I'll put it on the NHS.
Okay, thank you very much, Terry. Ian in North Ayrshire.
Hello, good morning.
Where would you
Good
put
morning,
that? If there is
Carole.
any, there's not very much free money, but where would you spend it? Or would you do what he's going to do, which is to put it into tax cuts?
No, I wouldn't go near a tax cut. I would look for taxes on vapes, severe taxes on vapes, which are no more than smoking lollipops and a gateway to real smokers for children.
They are. You're
And make
so right.
license.
You're
You
right.
need
They're
to have a
smoking
license
lollipops.
to have a vape shop.
Can I write
Then
that down?
I
Because
would-
I just want to write that down.
I would put more penalties on the off gem or off water who have no more teeth than a 3-year-old baby.
I want to write down everything you're saying, but it's not really answering the question. If you've got money, where do you spend it?
I wouldn't spend it on the National Health Service.
Right?
They don't know how to spend a penny wisely. I'd put it on defence because we're going to have a war within 10 years.
Yeah, well, don't start on that, Ian. For God's sake, we're in a bad enough mood already. We're going to have a war within 10 years. Who with, anyway? Who with, Ian? Russia.
I don't think it's a higher English, a higher geography question. I think it's somewhere that people dance and they put wee things in egg cups and they put a series of egg cups all together until you get to 6.
I know that. That's Russia. Thank you. Bridget in Surrey, hi.
Morning.
I don't know if you can do better than Ian, but where would you put the money? Or would you give it in tax cuts?
It is. I'm trying to say that we've just had our new tax code, and I'm 75, and a lot. I've read there's 26% of pensioners do not have a second pension. So for the first year, they're going to have to start paying tax, which means a tax return, which for £300, that is an awful lot of admin wasted for that. So I think the threshold should be increased.
Well, do you know what? It's very interesting how pensioners are starting to get dragged into tax brackets on the state pension, from what I gather from people. I don't know how that works, but extraordinary. Thank you, Bridget, very much. We'll take more calls after the break and go back to our panel as well. If Hunter's got some money and he hasn't got much, should he give tax cuts? Should he spend it on, what is it, councils, army, NHS? Ian talked about the smoking lollipops. We'll see you very shortly. Fabulous boxes. Someone's done here. I want to say thanks to the team. I think it was Josh and Sarah who did it. Can you look down the bottom? It actually says on it, and there's no other TV channel that has this, Chancellor of the, look at that, beautifully lit up. Chancellor of the Exchequer. So the red box, it's not the one he's using, but it looks like it. He will come into Downing Street today and as they do, produce it, wave it around. Inside this red box are some comments we've had on our Facebook page. That's how organised we are today. So Paul says, cutting the VAT rate from the current 20% would be a good start. 20% makes a big difference on all our bills. Yeah. Cut VAT, that's when I scrunch it, that's not disrespecting. Yeah. Anthony says abolish inheritance tax.
Yes.
Looks like he might be in line for something there. Geraint, give tax relief to pubs to make a fairer playing field between them and supermarkets.
Yes.
They should just say any beer bought in a supermarket costs £10, shouldn't they?
Well, not really.
Because you have to go down the pub to buy cheap beer.
Because that punishes poor people. It does.
Oh, I see. Yeah, of course. Chrissy says they should get social care and health care sorted above everything else, not be giving people tax cuts. Michael, that's where it is. Really,
I think that's where the majority view among the public is at the moment, because they see services crumbling around them. I mean, the polling shows it is. When they say, would you prioritise tax cuts or would you prioritise having social services better funded? People say the latter.
I remember when Therese Coffey was Liz Truss's health secretary. And I know, at the first party conference, Liz Truss made a speech and she said, and here's Therese Coffey, who's Health Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister. And in her first year as Health Secretary, she's going to sort out social care. She's going to make sure everyone can see a doctor within 3 days. She's going to stop delays to ambulances. And she's going to clear up A&E. I'm thinking, What planet? Seriously, it really annoyed me. That's a serious task for a government, that is.
The real shocker, I think, of the National Health Service is social care. And yet again, it's about elderly people being abandoned. And it is every government's shame, actually. It's not.
Well, Tony Blair says you won't have to sell your house to have social care.
Tosh, because people do all the time. And it's shocking.
Yeah.
How would you pay for that then?
Huh?
How would you pay for that?
Well, I don't know. I'm not the Chancellor.
No, but you get people to sell their houses, right?
No, I don't think anyone who's worked to have a house should be forced to sell it, frankly. But when I say social care, I mean, just general things like, the Meals on Wheels services. My mum had this in the Northeast, where someone comes in the morning, gets you with a shower, puts you to bed at night time. I'm not sure that happens now, and if it does, they get a very small amount of time.
No, I haven't seen Meals on Wheels for a long time, and it's nothing better than being held up by a Meals on Wheels van. You really feel like it's a social thing.
But exactly, that's right. Because
it's the most important bit of traffic on our roads.
Some elderly people can't cook anymore. They just can't get up to the cooker to do it. So it's the only hot food that have in it. More importantly, the carers are probably sometimes the only people they're seeing today.
No, for sure. I completely agree. Helen is in Aberdeenshire. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Jeremy.
What's your thought on this little bit of money he's got? What does he do with it?
Well, I was involved in a situation yesterday, and I was verbally abused and threatened with physical abuse by a bunch of thugs who were high on drugs.
Right.
And I ran home and I called the police. And I called 999 4 times, and nothing happened. And eventually, after 3 hours, 2 police officers from a different district turned up, and they didn't take a report, they didn't do anything, and they said, the problem is there's no money.
Oh.
There's no money to police this. And I feel I felt physically threatened, and I had a horrible experience, and nothing is done about this because they say there's no money and more money needs to be spent on the police. And I live in a town where drug abuse is huge. Drug assistance, help with drug assistance doesn't really happen. Substance abuse isn't supported.
I understand.
And I was only going to the shop and going to pick up a takeaway, and on my way back, I won't give you the words that they used because it's morning television and it won't be appropriate. But I think that Police Scotland are really struggling. And when I phoned 999 4 times, and I was referred to 101, who referred me back to 999,
it's not good. No, thank you so much, Helen. I'm really sorry about that. And actually, I'm really glad you mentioned crime, because crime, well, we've seen with Police Scotland, the absolute shambles over that Ian Packer case where the guy murdered someone, was in plain sight, and they left him for 17 years. But it's the same all over the country. People not coming out when they're called. Helen, thank you. Michael in North Wales, where would you put the money?
Well, policing would be one of the things, and the National Health Service would be another.
So what was the first one?
Policing.
Yeah. Let me write your name down, Michael. I'll just write you down on our list here. So NHS, and I'll put our first caller, Helen, was down. I think we'll put her under military/police. Helen there, and then I'm going to go over here, guys. Let me just move over here slowly. And Michael. Okay. So, but NHS, what part of it, Michael?
Well, general, really. I'm very lucky. I'm now 80 years old, and the last time I was in hospital, I was 11 and having my appendix out.
Wow, seriously. Well, in the end, there's not that much money. What about Carole's idea? Don't kick up here, Carole. Where you just say go the full Liz Truss and do it properly this time. So you slash taxes, and everyone just gets on with it.
No, I wouldn't slash taxes at all. This tax slash is bringing now is national insurance, so I won't get any benefit out of it.
Oh, because you're a pensioner.
And that you have on your panel has twice referred to the ageing population. Well, I'm part of that ageing population, But my tax bill this year is nearly £600.
So that's
I'm paying
off the state pension and a little bit of private pension, is it?
My private pension works out at a grand sum of £90 a year.
How are you being charged? I don't get it. How has anyone answered me? How, if you're on a state pension, you're subject to inheritance to income tax? Is that the case?
It depends what the total is, and obviously it's affected you really badly, which is shocking. You know, we had someone on before saying the tax threshold for pensioners should be brought down, and it absolutely should. It's shocking that you're paying tax at 80 something. You've paid your taxes throughout your life.
Well, I think you should be at 80. You should just stop paying tax altogether. Thank you, Michael. Carl in Leicestershire. Hi.
Morning, Mr. Vine. How are you?
Hi, I'm well, thanks. Now, you've got a whole selection here of NHS, road and rail, army, but police as well. You've got other things like councils, education, housing, or you could just take the money.
No.
No?
The NHS is fine. They do an absolute superb service. The military are absolutely fine with what they do because it's all technology now.
We need it
in the infrastructure.
Yeah.
We need people in the county councils and the city councils to look after people who can't get help at home.
I think you're talking social care here, are you? Or
social care. Absolutely.
I see. Okay, let me write. If you don't mind, I'll write that down right now. So, because that's a good one, and that tends to come through the councils, doesn't it, Carl? So the councils are going bankrupt now.
Well, they ought to manage it better.
Okay, Carl, thanks so much. Michael, I don't know, we seem to have so little room to play with. It's a tough one for old Jeremy Hunt today, isn't it?
You know, I suppose, first of all, just to say to the older gentleman, when I talk about an ageing population, I'm not saying it's a problem. It's great that we're all living longer, but that will create more costs for the NHS on aggregate. In terms of where to get the money from, so the police cost us £25 billion a year. Something that costs us £23 billion a year is housing benefit. So if we just built a few more houses, right, then we could get down the cost of the housing benefit, and then we could, build some more council homes that actually create income.